Thank you for joining us, wherever you are. This podcast episode was brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play is performed by adults and contains adult themes. This show is mature and meant for mature audiences. This show may contain strong sexual content, political extremism, physical violence, gore, mental control, imprisonment, and other important content warnings which may be detailed in the episode description. All content, including names, places, events, and etc., which may bear resemblance to entities, living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your storyteller. Thank you for joining us for this special episode of the Old Ways podcast. We are coming to you tonight for the first of several preludes that we're doing for a new series, which will be appearing on Twitch, called Stealing Immortality. It is a vampire Dark Ages story. And with me tonight, I have the first of our prospective ghouls for you to meet. So without further ado, to my right.
Hi, this is Morgan, and I am playing Genevieve de Montfort. Our pronouns are she, her. Genevieve is a ghoul whose sire is part of the clan Ventru. And the road that Genevieve is taking is the Road of Kings.
Splendid. So, Genevieve, you serve a important person, a very important person for you. You serve your sire in Clan Ventru, a man named Antonio Polari. He is to you the sun. And even though that shining light sits normally for everyone else in the heavens above, for you, the sun is here. It walks on earth and does so at night. And so I wonder if you might be able to regale us with a small bit of how you came to be in his arms.
How Antonio and I met? Well, I was traveling this road back to Constantinople after a great battle, and we just happened upon each other. I was battered and bruised and close to death, and Antonio revived me.
How nice of him to take what he had and make you whole. And it was several years since that's happened, yes?
I mean, it feels like a lifetime, but it's been almost 4 years now.
You serve him having come to understand who Antonio is. You understand that he has lived within these walls of Constantinople for many years. You know that he has many interests in trade, in the movements of the military here, in the political factions. You understand that your sire is powerful and that he has some control over the events that happen even in a city as large as Constantinople. He attends church, as is right, and he speaks and reads much of architecture and history. He is a superiorly learned man. His presence changes the air and the feel of a room when he walks in. You adore Antonio, not for who he is, perhaps not just, but the example at which he sets. Because you too feel that in time, that aura of control will be yours. Clan Ventru has been a significant part of your life these past 3 years. You have done many, many things in its name, some silent and some in as open ways as is possible. You have stood amongst his retainers, those he keeps closest to him, for events, And while they may be under the cover of night and perhaps lit by lanterns or torches, you were among those he counted trustworthy enough to be close to him. And so in these long nights and sometimes even hotter days, you stand guard outside his bedroom, outside his meeting spaces when he is conducting business. You travel to the market. You carry important missives. You attend to his schedule as necessary. But that is not all of the relationship you have had with Antonio. What other facets of his life have you come to realize, Genevieve?
That he hungers, that he wants. He has a particular need.
I wonder, how does that make her feel? When you first came to understand the hunger that he has, how did that make you feel?
That I wanted to feel it coursing through my body.
And when you take his blood once a month, you feel a small bit of what you can imagine is the sheer power that runs through Antonio every day. You've never felt stronger than being under his roof. You've never felt more alive than when you serve him. And so when the word comes from another of the nightly retainers that Antonio is asking for you, it piques your interest. What could your master want? What could he ask of you?
There's nothing that he would ask that I would say no to.
And so, do you go immediately?
Of course. Sire has seen me in all sorts of dress and undress, so go as I am. What time of day is it?
It is nighttime, and you are dressed. Although you wear no protective armor as you have before, you carry no sword as it is not necessary at this time. You go to him, and you find him just beyond the main portion of his villa here. There is a wide rectangular space behind his house. This house, the one you are so fortunate to live in. You can see water from his house. It is that high on the hill. You can see the other villas and the grand palace not far, the hippodrome in the distance. You are very fortunate. And you know this. And somewhere, perhaps in the back of your brain, a voice says, "Of course you're here. You're supposed to be here." You've heard this voice before. Sometimes it feels like Antonio. Sometimes you hear your sire call to you from within you. You appear at his side without remembering that you were headed towards him. Perhaps it's just kismet that continues to bring your footsteps together, but you think not. You think something, perhaps something within him, continues to draw you to him.
Oh, this is what God had intended for me.
Some were always meant to rule, and that is the path you are on. And so you find him dressed in a very simple but yet regal piece of cloth with draped about his body as he sits in a wide chair overlooking a very calm pool of water. In this space, the open air portion of it is ample. You can see the night sky and its stars. It is fairly common for Antonio to spend time out here each night, sometimes with guests and other times just by himself, reading over sheets of paper or making notes onto what is to be done during his slumber. Without a word, he very carefully extends his left hand to the space in front of him, a gesture you have seen him done countless times. He is asking you to be in front of him.
I glide as best as I can over there and stand in front of him.
Antonio is a man likely whose physical aging stopped in his late 30s, maybe early 40s. He has long, dark hair down past his shoulders. He has a somewhat masterfully cut beard. It gives him a striking and regal appearance. He has a nose which is slightly pointed, but gives him the face of a raptor. And when he smiles, which he does as you arrive, you can tell that he's all too pleased to see what you believe is his favorite. His voice is velvety, all-consuming when he speaks. You can feel your own blood pressure begin to get amplified. He says, "I have a very special task for you.
Yes, sire.
Come, kneel here."
I kneel in front of him.
He leans forward, putting his arms, elbows on his thighs, and sort of leans forward just slightly. It has come to my attention that several of last night's celebrants were left where they were, rather than being cleared out by some of the other retainers. So, for character knowledge, you realize that this is an immediate problem. Many people come and go when there are festivities here. Many of your master and the clan, occasionally during baths, do feedings. When they do, sometimes there are appetites which cannot directly be sated all the time. And unfortunately, there are those who lose their lives, but in service to the greater powers that keep Constantinople going. This is simply the way of things. It seems that someone has left a mess in the basements, and so it is likely that will need to be cleaned up.
Yes, sire. As you wish.
He just gives you the slightest of grin. It's almost like he knows what you're thinking. And he raises his left palm and says, "It is not necessarily a task I need you to accomplish. You will not be doing the cleaning. You will be instructing those who should have been doing it why they're going to do it now." And you hear just this clamp come down around your brain when he talks. You feel the power behind his words, and you know that what you have to do is you're going to have to play herder to a series of people who are supposed to do their job. You're going to have to be your sire's enforcer. This is a wondrous opportunity.
Yeah, and when he talks to me like that, it gives me butterflies in my stomach, and I start to blush and maybe get a little turned on because the power.
Sure.
And yeah, it's raring to go. The adrenaline starts pumping.
He stands up. And when he does, he puts his left hand on the top of your head. And you can feel his presence sort of just overwhelm you. And he says, "After it is done, and done right, return to me, for I have another task in the coming nights."
Yes, sir.
You get up to go. Part of you wants to linger there under his hand, because it has been some time since Antonio came into contact with you. Until probably very recently, he had been very direct and very warm is a stretch, but he had been very direct with you. It has been some time, and so feeling him in contact with you is exhilarating, but you have a duty.
Yep, I get up. A little bit about Genevieve is that she looks to be about in her late 20s. So she's a young woman. She's got auburn colored hair, these crystal blue eyes. She's got freckles dotting her face. She might seem to be always a little perpetually like blushing a little bit. And she stands about 5'8", slender, but athletically built, given her background, which you might learn at some point. And she's very attractive.
Certainly. I mean, Antonio only selects the best, right?
He does have a type.
He does. Well, certainly all of Clan Ventura has a specific type usually, but
Yep.
you do fit his mold. And having seen others within those he would pick from, you do occasionally help him collect mortals to be celebrants at his parties. And it does give you the opportunity to select those who might not necessarily be as beautiful as you are, which gives you, again, some form of control.
Yep. Then he's feeding on them.
Right.
And as long as I continue to be as amazing as I already am, I only looking up from here.
Sure. So you head to the place down below, the baths. So the villa itself has a upper portion, and then there is a series of stone staircases that run down below this to a hot spring or a hot bath area. And these are tended to by a varying number of people when Antonio has events. They stoke up the bath, they get it nice and hot, and then you or other retainers massage his body to get some semblance of warmth back into his bones. It is something that he tends to enjoy doing. There are many memories you have made of all types here in the baths. But as you make the final staircase to the bath, you do see, well, the beginning of the problem. And that would be the body of a young man who is slumped against one of the walls. You see his neck is at a wrong angle. And on the other side of his neck, there are two very, very noticeable puncture wounds. And a considerable amount of remaining blood has bled down the right side of his body. And he is not the only one.
Is the blood dried on the side of the young man's body?
Yes.
Okay. Since it was from last night.
Yes. All told, just a cursory examination of the bath space down here and its beautiful mosaic tiles, there are likely 6 or 7 celebrants that are either past or, medically speaking, are not in a very healthy way and probably will pass shortly. The biggest problem, of course, is that no one has fucking cleaned this up. And as you continue to pick your way, just getting a view of the scene, you feel your own sense of frustration that someone who your sire put in charge of keeping his domus clean has failed to do their job.
That will not stand. Someone's going to be punished.
What would you like to do about it?
Need to go find the retainers.
Okay.
As I walk by one of the bodies that might still be partially alive, very little alive. As I walk by one of the bodies that's still alive, I can hear them moaning a little bit, and I swipe my fingers along where the puncture wounds are, and I bring it up to my mouth and lick it, only to feel that much closer to my sire. And then I step on the body as I walk by.
Okay. You get a slight taste of saliva, and you can tell, having tasted it before, that your sire's mouth was on this person.
I might feel a little jealous at that point, knowing that.
Well, it's been several months since his mouth has been on you, and so that is slightly frustrating, but it's not as frustrating as his space not being...
Yes, refocus.
Right.
Time to go kick some retainers' asses.
You know exactly who to go to, and that is Julian, his lead seneschal, who covers this space when it is his... There's a specific person who deals with this, and for whatever reason, Julian has not done his job. He's within the house.
I go locate him.
You stalk your way through the house. As you pass through these spaces, so just so we get a little architectural stuff out of the way so you understand how villas work, there's an awful lot of open space in a villa. And so when you come in through one of these side doors, of course, avoiding the pool and bath that is outside where Antonio is, because of course you don't want to see your sire before you have fixed what the problem is. You enter a very long hallway, and that hallway shoots basically completely from the back end of the villa to the front, right? So imagine a wide hallway that is very long, and then instead of all of the rooms being sort of like separated like you would see in a modern home, everything is open. There are side rooms, which we would think of like bedrooms and studies, etc., that sort of cluster along the outer portion of the villa. And those are a little bit, smaller, but there's a lot of open space. And what you need to get to is basically like the other side of the house, or the other side of the villa on the right-hand side, which is where the seneschal and that office works.
Yeah, as I'm going in, I will call out Julian. So I'm assuming it's echoey, and I could be heard.
It's echoey, for sure. Some of the spaces here are also, they have people in them. So you see other retainers, other staff. Antonio only keeps a certain amount of ghouls, of course. And you're fairly certain he has about 5 or 6. And Julian is not a ghoul. He's just a retainer. And so he's someone who your master has retained their services and likely has impressed upon the fact of how important he is and what an honor it is to serve. So you are a little bit higher on the pecking order, so to speak, than Julian is. You're also allowed to carry a weapon in the house, which only a few people are. So you continue your way up the path and you watch just ever so slightly as some of the mortal staff begin to get out of your way. They can tell that you're agitated. The entire aura comes off of you. And you enter the seneschal's office, and there's 4 or 5 people working, and you see Julian furiously working on something. It's a sheaf of paper. He's writing. He's got his desk up, and he's trying to carefully write it.
Yeah, I go over and I pick Julian up by the throat.
Oh, okay. He drops his quill and the ink vial. The inkwell tumbles off of the table, spilling all over the place.
As he's sitting there choking and... Julian, it's my time to talk. You had your chance. Sire is very upset, which means I'm very upset. Why aren't the baths cleaned?
He's pawing at your hand, right? He's trying to get you to loosen your grip. Of course, you have potence as a ghoul, so you're automatically stronger than basically every human that's out there. My question to the player is, what do you think the possibility is that you might be a little bit overzealous when you pick him up?
Oh, I know I'll be a little overzealous, but I don't want to kill him because I want...
No, certainly not.
Him to do his damn job.
You want him to do his job. Okay. So I would like you to make me, we'll say charisma, because you haven't given him a direct order yet. You're sort of trying to intimidate, or you're attempting to intimidate him. I'd like to make me a charisma and intimidation roll. Difficulty is 6, and then he'll resist with willpower.
All right, I got 3 successes.
Okay. You get up there and you grab him and you put him against the wall, and a bunch of stuff stops, and all the other retainers and staff here stop working. And he claws at your arm, and he looks down at you defiantly, and he says, I'm going to get to it.
I drop him.
Okay. And ceremonially, like, just drop his body and clatters to the floor.
And I lean down. You need to get to it now. If not you, some others.
He looks up in disgust and stands to his feet. If had I known it was going to be such a ostentatious celebration, I would have had more staff on hand to deal with the refuse.
Would you like me to tell our sire of your unhappiness?
He instantly looks afraid, and he begins to hold his hands up as if, to sort of surrender. And that's when you know you're going to have to make an example out of him.
Does sire not treat everyone here with respect and kindness, and feeds you and clothes you? It is an honor to serve for him. And here you are, complaining about it. Maybe we need somebody else to do that job instead of you.
He shakes his head furiously. No. I will go. I will go and do it right now. I was simply continuing the work he had already given me, and I was trying to complete it. And now I will go and I will clean up.
What work are you trying to complete for him?
There are these missives. He reaches down and grabs a handful of sheaves of paper. All these messages, all these communications that he needs. This does not happen by itself.
To clarify, is he writing the communication, or is he delivering them?
He's writing, but it's likely that what he's doing is writing responses, or he's writing formal invitations to the next social thing, or he's writing down, he could be sending any number of messages potentially. In your mind, this is just another excuse, like, get your work done.
Yeah, I kick him in the stomach.
Okay, I want you to make me a dex brawl roll.
What's the difficulty? Still 6?
It's still 6.
Okay, so I got 3 successes.
Okay, you have a dot of potence, and so for every dot of potence you have, it will add 1 die to all strength-related rolls. So roll your strength plus potence plus 1.
All right, so I got 4 successes.
Okay. So 4 points of damage coming in on him, and he'll roll his stamina. Okay, and so you're going to deal 2, 3. You deal 3 boxes of damage to him. It's all bashing damage, of course. You kick him when he's down in the gut, and he doubles over, and you hear a great cough come out of him, and you see the floor, the ink that covers it, is also now mingling with blood that Julian spat out. And he calls with whatever strength he has left in his body, and he says, I swear it will be done.
It better be. And there's another person in the room, right?
There's like 2 or 3 other people in the room.
You 2, one of you get him up. The other one, finish up these missives. Or you'll be like him down there. But maybe worse.
They nod quickly. And knowing now that you've got that situation sorted, What will you do?
I will go back to my sire, my one true love.
You find him. He appears to be having something to drink, sitting in the glass next to him. He sets down the book that he has on the table and says, "Everything sorted?"
Yes, as requested, sire.
Good. If it becomes necessary, we may have to find someone to properly instruct them further. I cannot have a dirty house. And that same type of thinking extends to other places. Politics requires we make a different move. For far too long, certain members of our clan have given themselves over to a desire to please this once great member of the kindred. I speak, of course, of Michael. We can no longer do this in the same way. We can no longer supplicate and bow our heads to this Toreador. It is time that we show those who support him that there is a cost for it. And so I have a very special task for you. In the nights to come, you will make your way to a celebration, another evening event, but one to celebrate one of our own clan. And at this event, you will find your way, by any means, into the vault they keep there. And you will retrieve for me a special prize. Something which belongs to us. And in return, for its safe return, you will have shown your devotion not only to me, but to the entirety of Clan Ventru. The real clan.
As you wish, sire. I will do what is necessary to bring you this item.
You will not be able to do it alone. This villa is fortified. It has many eyes and ears. You will need to be able to work with others for this larger plan to be enacted. And so, you will meet others there. You will have their names. You will work in concert with them, much like we kindred do in our own triumphance. We are forging a new one. And you will be one of my spokes.
Whatever you or Clan Ventru need, sire, I am there. But I don't need others.
I think that if you are going to exist in a space and time long term, you're going to need to understand how politics work. You're going to need to understand when to interact with other members of our society, whether they be kindred or ghoul, and how to exploit them and get them to do what you need. This is a test as much as anything.
I do enjoy a good test.
You do. Now, we will speak more of this, but sit with me tonight. You can almost hear Antonio's tone soften. It's sort of intoxicating. You've heard him talk like that before.
We'll be doing more than sitting.
Indeed, we will. And now, welcome back to the second installment of our Stealing Immortality Prelude series. We'll get directly to things now as we introduce the second member of our group. I will let the player introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about the character they're playing.
Hi, I'm Bunny. I play Amarenzia. Both our pronouns are she, her. And I am a ghoul on the road of sin.
Indeed, you are. So you have a fairly special relationship. And that relationship is with someone who you serve. You met them on the road. I think that's the best way to say it. But I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about who they are and why they're special to you.
The Dama?
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Dama Adelaide Del Verdi, and she is amazing. We met, I must have been traveling through Rome at the time. I don't know what tasted better. The libations we got into, her taste in music, the taste of her lips. She is everything. God. She might also be that, actually.
It's possible. From everything that you've seen from the Dama, she certainly could play the part. Whether it's attending her at social functions, walking with her at night from meetings in the Senate to much more pleasurable places like the bathhouses or even the Hippodrome for late night gladiatorial contests. She keeps a wide array of social functions at her beck and call. She is someone who is closely aligned with many of the more powerful members of Clan Toreador here in Constantinople. And they all take their cues from Michael, who is a legendarily powerful and old Toreador, who has brought forth a vision onto Constantinople about how many different clans can seek a better way. Now, Michael does not necessarily take up all of the Dama's time. In fact, most of her time at night is spent in the pursuit of art in one way or another. You have watched her very carefully craft at the potter's wheel. You have seen her draw brush against stone or many different types of fabric. You have watched her even sew and put together clothing. She is a virtuoso at more than a handful of arts. And she's simply someone who will not be denied when it comes to what she is after. She keeps a wide group of retainers. She has many mortals who provide her sustenance. And one of the reasons why you're fairly certain that she could at least play God is she never tires. Not truly. She never gets sick. She always has this beautiful alabaster tone to her skin. She smells of rose hips and saffron, and just the lightest bit of honey in her hair. She's also quite socially vicious when necessary as well. She is like a jungle cat in some ways, in several ways, which you've experienced. And this evening, the Dama has come to your quarters. And after rousing you, she's asked if you would collect a few others from the pools nearby in her villa, prepare them, and prepare for a walk in the palace gardens. The vaunted palace gardens in Constantinople are a wide-ranging area. And it is not uncommon when she is feeling particularly hungry that she might go to the gardens and walk under the moon.
Yes, Of course I'll gather others for you. How many would you like me to bring?
I think 5 will do.
All right. Well, if 5 is what your heart desires, it's what you shall get.
She turns, leaving behind the long white robe that she arrived in, and she walks out the door and seemingly heads back down to her quarters through the artistically crafted wooden doors which separate this room from the main portion of the villa. You can see that there are already attendants in the area outside waiting to receive whatever word or order might fall from her lips to their ears, but she walks away in silence.
I will make my way over to the pools and see who will join us in the garden this evening.
There are likely anywhere from 8 to 10 people, retainers, mortals mostly, which you would know are that's her aim. She wouldn't likely have any of her other ghouls accompany you to the gardens. You have a fair idea what she's after. Likely music and debauchery and probably art. Not necessarily in the order, but and so from the group, you could select any which you like. There are, we'll just say, a cornucopia of selections. Her tastes are wide and ranging from young to old to local to far off. There is a young woman here who you believe is from the northern part of Spain. And she came by merchant ship perhaps 2 months ago. And her name is Cordelia.
Mm.
And the Dama took some immediate interest in her. And like many of the things that she becomes interested in, they eventually wane, which has happened. But it has been some time since she's been out. It really is up to you.
I will ask for her to accompany us, but then I will also try to handpick 4 others that are the most varied amongst this so that we don't end up. How do I put this? When you are putting together a feast, you don't only serve the same dish.
Certainly. You'd like to have a proper spread of things to pick from.
Indeed.
And you do so. It is easy. The Dama's herd is fairly wide-ranging. And after collecting them and, getting them all sort of in a line or in a group, I wonder what you might say to them.
The Dama has graced us with an invitation to join her in the gardens. And you are the hand-selected party guests this evening, should you follow me.
You barely get the entirety of her name out before they're all completely under your sway. You can hear their rapid heartbeat. You can hear them breathing just slightly more. I don't know. There's a rapt attention when you mention her name. And it's clear that they're prepared to follow you wherever you would like them to go.
Delectable. Then I'll head with them to the gardens to join the Dama. Would hate to keep her waiting.
You would. It's actually a pretty important night for you, judging by the calendar you keep both written and in your head. You are due to feed tonight. And so you are secure in the knowledge that likely you'll get what you are supposed to get from the Dama, and probably fills you with some level of excitement.
It's like when you know it's about to rain and you get there's a storm coming and you can feel it on your skin almost already. Moments like these, I'm happy I get to live for them for now, though live is not necessarily always going to be the thing I'd like to do for them.
Certainly there is the potential pleasure at the end of this road, one which might lead to a lifetime of pleasures. The garden is lush this time of year. It is well maintained. It rained likely a couple of days ago. And so under a beautiful moon, the group of you find the Dhamma in a semicircle form of hedges, which stands about 10 or 12 feet tall. In the center of it, there is a place to make a fire, although there is no fire lit here. And as you approach with them, you get another scent sort of on the air, and it's myrrh. There's a lot of pleasing tones that come with it. There are 2 stone benches that sit in this space. They're probably 5 to 6 feet long apiece. And the tones which come through those hedges, through those branches and leaves, are ones you've heard before. Many times, in fact. Huh? There are several people having a wondrous time, likely just around the edge there. And as you make that turn, the scene upon you sort of unfolds with the Dhamma now in a very dark silk outfit. It's a little different than what you're used to seeing. It has a belt. It's almost as if she's wearing some form of breeches. It looks very strange. At the bottom of each one of her legs, she has some sort of copper or brass ring, like a cuff almost. And it makes the outfit flow. She's positively striking in it. She would be in anything.
She would be without anything.
That is a fact.
My God. The fact that I get to be in the presence of someone like this ever, let alone as often as I do. I'll actually say out loud, instead of just admiring her and thinking of what songs I might write about her, and the beautiful visage that I get to draw in this evening in these gardens. I'll actually snap myself out of it long enough to say, you look delectable. You look inspired, Dhamma. Truly.
She makes a very perceptible change of her expression. Just a slight upturn of her lip, and you hear her make a sound as if she's ingested something that tastes sweet. And because of your heightened abilities to hear and see, you feel it like in your bones. And she's 20 feet away. Several of the other pool attendants begin to clamor around and try to get to her, not to touch or take hold or anything, but they want to be closer to her. This is the same type of fawning that you have seen so many others do. It's fleeting at best, but the Dhamma should be praised in this way, obviously.
So, Dhamma, what would you like first? I pull out my harp, but I also sort of wink at her, because if she needs other things done, these hands can wait for a harp for later.
Certainly. She turns to just the slightest turn of her body, she turns back towards where the the couple who is here enjoying themselves. And she turns and just with a wave of her hand gestures to them. And the group of pool goers you brought just join them. And suddenly the garden is filled with many pieces of clothing that are on the grass.
Fabulous.
And Dama steps back and rests just ever so slightly on the edge of this stone fire pit. This beautiful, wrought-shaped fire pit here in the palace gardens. And she says, play something for me, and of course for our entertainment.
Sure. I will pull out my harp and start playing a popular song of the era. I unfortunately do not have prepared by name for you right now, but I will.
Okay.
A popular 11th century song gets played that is appropriate for such a pleasurable occasion.
Certainly. It's likely just a melody that you have worked at. You are an excellent musician, a virtuoso in your own right. And so I think this is likely something that I'll just, unless you want to roll, this is something that you can absolutely take any sort of automatic success on and perform admirably. It's likely, I'd imagine it's a charisma roll to play instruments.
That would make sense.
I think it's definitely going to be charisma and performance then. And of course, as you have a specialization, you can re-roll 10s. Because this is 20th edition vampire, your difficulty is 6.
I have 5 successes.
You play inspired. You play like someone who wants to show the person who they both serve and I don't even think admire. I would hasten to guess love the person you are enraptured with. And every day you get the opportunity to play for them. And those fingers do work. So much so that the revelers, I think that's probably the best way to say it, the revelers who are nearby come closer. They do not stop reveling, of course, but they come closer to you. And the Dama sort of holds her gaze on you while you play. And you realize that she's keeping eye contact with you as you play. And you feel all of the things, all of the humanity that you still have within you. You feel the rush of blood. You feel your face go completely red. It doesn't keep you from being amazing at what you're doing, but there is this heightened feeling of knowing that now she's paying direct attention to you. She continues that. She gives you sort of all of her attention for just like a minute or two, and your circuits feel like they're on overload. But it's a really great overload. The revelers are working hard to not topple you over and the harp. As you are now amongst them and playing for them. And from behind her, the Dama produces something you've seen before. It looks like a crow's beak, but it's made of metal. It almost looks like something that someone might use as a sewing implement, but you know exactly what it's for. You see it every month. It is the thing which she uses to give part of herself to you. And she just eases up with 110% of all the cool in this place. And she slowly walks to you, continuing to keep eye contact with you. And she gets closer and then pauses just at the edge of the revelers.
As if her attention alone isn't intoxicating enough, exhilarating enough. This is my favorite day of every month.
She places that crow head, just a hollowed out crow head, on her fingertip.
I will go beside her, join her. I feel like just due to, gosh, the way that I enjoy making her feel worshipped and the way that she enjoys me worshiping her, I would probably get down on my knees to be more at wrist level. Just even if I could do this standing, this is just how we do this. I would kneel before her for this part.
Okay. The revelers do their best to hold on to you. They are not strong enough to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But they do, I wouldn't say grab at, but they rub up against your legs as you sort of get to the edge of their grouping. You get an awful lot of invitations to stay in a multitude of languages, some of which you know. And the Dhamma reaches behind her clothing and sort of unfastens the belt. This beautiful brass and malachite belt that she wears, and she lets it fall to the garden floor. When she does so, a bunch of additional tiny chains that were connected to other parts of her outfit fall away as well. And you watch sort of the flowing portion of her outfit appear more dress-like, more tunic-like.
Mm.
And she very carefully picks up the right edge near her right thigh and begins carefully pulling it up and up. And her left index finger, which holds the crow beak, traces a careful line at the upper portion of her right thigh. And you feel this bodily need because you know what is coming. And just the tiniest bit of dark crimson begins to emit from that space.
You are too generous to me. And I will say that. Make an eye contact with her. You are too generous to me, my lady. And then I will drink to not be too illicit for our audience. I will proceed to lap up her gift to me.
It's exhilarating. It always is. It reminds you of your earliest experiences with her. There is always something about her blood that feels so right in you. Like the taste of it, the consistency, the pounding in your ears that finally goes away, that is always sort of there around the time of your need. It is the perfect intoxicant, and it is something that you and her share that few other people get to. And she continues her eye contact with you. You feel her hand on your head, very just gently making sure you have what you need and reassuring you. Your mouth and chin are obviously coated in blood. She gives you a signal when it is time for you to cease. There are no words spoken. The unspoken portions of the looks and all of the different pantomimes between the two of you are like a song, accented by a symphony of carnal pleasure behind you.
This is a melody. I know the notes too.
Indeed. She gives you the impression she wants you to stand.
I will stand for her.
She allows her clothing to drop back to the floor, just the edge of her dress. And she says, I have something very important I need you to do.
Anything.
Come sit with me. She turns and heads around this unlit fire pit to the benches.
I will join her, but I will fall behind her enough that I can sort of use a hand to try to wipe her blood off my chin and lick it off my hand so none of it gets wasted.
Waste not, want not. You do your best to sort of clean up that it's... Vampiric blood is a little bit thicker than mortal or ghoul blood, obviously.
Yeah.
But you get every ounce of it that you can find. You know that you'll probably have to find a wash basin somewhere before you head back, because appearances and all.
Of course.
She sits down and turns inward towards you. There has been a series of disturbances in the Latin Quarter. It has come to my attention that many of the kindred who are there are frustrated and they're not receiving the things that they need. This is not our concern, but it is something to be said when the Ventru cannot seem to keep the peace. I fear they may be riling them up.
Well, it is quite perturbing. Well, on a night like tonight, where you never fail to exercise me, and I try to never let you down or let your enjoyment cease before you say so. I could see how a vexation like this would make it hard to enjoy yourself to the fullest, and I will do anything that I can to get rid of it so that you can go back to the joy that you are seeking.
She smiles earnestly and then sort of intertwines her fingers. This is not a challenge for you to solve. There are larger political forces at work. What it does is provide you a bit of a backdrop as to what I'll have you do next.
Oh.
I have come to the understanding that there are some within the community who believe, as I do, in Michael's vision for this city. And he truly is an amazing font of inspiration. But there are those who work against him, or seem to. And I believe that they might be held accountable for their actions soon. And when they are, we need to be ready. Because there are treasures that these elders keep, ones which belong to others.
I see, my lady. So, Sama, what would you have me do?
I would have you prepare yourself for a social event. One where I will not be present. You will go as my scion of sorts. She reaches out just for a moment and sort of with her left hand, and you watch her playfully lick her thumb and reach over and rub something off your chin. We can't have you and I at this event. I am working to secure assistance for you.
Right.
This task is very important to me, as many tasks are, but securing what I need may very well secure your future.
Oh, you are so kind to me. Thank you for ensuring me assistance when I know that this event, whatever it is, will be a pleasure to attend for you. Though no social event is ever as much of a pleasure without you. But I will go and charm whoever I need to and be amongst whoever you desire me to entertain or distract as much as you like. You just tell me where and I'll be there for you.
Good. The riots in the Latin Quarter are coming to a head. The person responsible will likely be indisposed soon.
Mm-hmm.
There are meetings amongst my kind. And you see her get almost like a predatory look. It's a look you've seen before, sometimes in a much more pleasant way. When they are held responsible, I believe there will be a changing of the guard. When this happens, there will be confusion. This is when you will make your presence known. We will have to find you something to wear.
Oh, you have the best taste in clothing. And I'm sure that anything you pick will help me and ravish the lot of them.
Indeed, we'll have you bathed and prepared. And if you are going to go in my name socially, then you'll have to make sure that you're wearing just the right thing.
Of course. When she finishes talking, Amaranthia is going to lean in close with a sort of cheeky look on her face and go, I'm sorry, Dama. In the middle of that, was that an offer for you to bathe me?
She gives you a sort of genuine chuckle. Perhaps. We'll see how good you've been. For now, though, you're wearing far too many clothes. And I believe I'd like to see you over there. She points to the mass of flesh, the revelers.
Amaranthia will say as you wish to her and very slowly but intentionally disrobe while walking over to the group of revelers. And I mean, they were already trying to embrace her, so
they were
letting them have her enter the fold, as it were.
Inside this pile of people, I think that's the best term I'll use here. This I would call it a cuddle puddle, but I don't know that that's necessarily era accurate, but it is what it is. You feel the Dhamma. You feel her presence in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to hear her hum like a song in your head. It's one of mirth and happiness and enjoyment. It's in Italian. You can tell because every so often she drops a word here or a word there. You don't physically see her when you get glimpses from, within the pile. She's still way over there, intently watching, enjoying. You get that flood of emotional connection to her still. Yes. Question.
Can I roll another performance roll?
Oh, 100%. Of course you can.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, what?
So I thought I was good at music, but I got 6 successes on this.
Okay. We have to maybe look at that specialization. Maybe you're in the wrong field.
We can keep the harp specialization. Maybe the one that involved my mouth was the wrong one.
Perhaps. You are gallant by your demeanor. It is no more so gallant when you begin to work for an audience of one, the only audience that matters. You engage all of them over the next hour in one way, shape, or form. You exhaust them as you have the strength and resilience to keep going when they don't. As the hour ends, you feel that acknowledgement, the appreciation, the almost patronly joy of your audience. She retrieves you from the pile at some point, placing a hand on right under your belly, and she lifts you very carefully and writes you.
Yes, Dama.
You've tired all my toys out.
Is that not what you desired of me?
I desired the performance. You have met and exceeded my expectations. And you feel her hand, still yet with the crow tip on it, just playfully pat your backside. It sends an absolute thrill through you.
Dama, I feel like if this is not what you desired of me, then you should have been more specific.
Actually, I prefer to be a little vague. It allows for exploration.
Well, I do often take the part of fearless adventurer for you, so I suppose a little exploration doesn't hurt either of us much.
Life is a mixture of pleasure and pain anyway. Unlife is no different.
Fantastic.
Now, see that they make it back to the villa. I have a meeting. She very carefully, just almost effortlessly leans forward, and she makes contact with your neck with her lips, but it is the softest touch in the world. It gives you this beautiful roll of her natural pheromones and some of the other scents that she carries on her body. And you feel the lightest scrape of one of her teeth on you.
Excellent. I will get ready for that mission that you want me to go on for you as soon as I have returned them all to the pools.
There'll be an official invitation that will arrive at the villa. Look for it.
I will. Emerenzia is gonna sort of let herself have a small shudder. One of delight, don't worry. But a small shudder nonetheless, and then we'll back away to find her clothes and start getting the masses dressed again to return them to the pools and be a good little pet.
It wouldn't be the first time that a bunch of naked people tromped through the moonlight in this part of the palace or the villa areas. I mean,
I care less about their clothes. I actually liked my outfit, so I at least want to retrieve that.
And the harp?
Gotta retrieve my harp. I mean, I have spare harps in case I lose them while with the Dama, but I like this one. Would be a shame to lose it here.
It would be. The Dama turns, and as she leaves, so does the spark from this garden. And now it is a moonlit place that once, which was being showered with beauty, is now a little dimmer.
I will appreciate the ephemeral nature of the beauty she adds to a place, and then sort of make notes in my head for a song to write about that aspect of her later, and then see if my exhausted collection of mortal toys are ready to return to the pools.
They're probably not ready per se, but they are willing. So they eventually rise and find their feet, and you are able to shepherd them back to the pools where they can relax and work out all those sore muscle groups you've certainly given them. And I want to close our camera lens there on Emerenzia. And now, with the third and final portion of our Prelude series, we will introduce our last player. And so I'll just have them introduce themselves to my right.
Hi, this is Allie, and I am playing Ophelius Celos of Clan Bruja. Our pronouns are she, her, and I am on the path of the beast.
So, Ophelia, I think that it's best to get a foundation set with your character. You have a very unique perspective, much as many of the other ghouls that we've had on, and I think that your perspective is important. You serve a very important person in your life, arguably the most important person in your life that you will ever serve, as far as you are concerned. And I would think it'd be wonderful for you to tell us a little bit about what brought you into his gaze.
So when I was 19, my parents had been trying to marry me off to a couple of different families in the city center that are, of the same merchant class. But having been brought into the family from my parents who were formerly slaves, they died from some sort of disease, and the family brought me in as essentially an adoptive daughter. And with that, I learned some of the trades that they had employed for. And I also learned how to essentially sell wares in the marketplace. I also, because of that, had to learn how to read in order to learn more about the particular craft that I was initially raised in, which was being a chandler, making candles specifically. But the several families that had initially accepted me as a betrothed to be welcomed into the family found me to be too willful and independent and knowledge hungry, which is not a set of desirable traits for women. So I was at a bookseller trying to get some information on another merchant who was supplying things to them so that I could try to undercut and take over that part of the market for the family. And I can only imagine that my master was able to overhear me fighting for information to make my life better. And I can only imagine that that's something that he found intriguing and was an initial draw.
Quite possibly. No matter if that's true or not, what transpired afterwards is pretty visceral. As far as your journey through life, things changed then. Your sire, Kalias, plucks you from the family likely without warning, because he has the power to break those chains that he sees. And so it is very likely that Ophelia was 1 minute selling candles in the marketplace, and another minute she was mysteriously missing from her family. They likely searched for her. But what your sire offered was far more than just freedom. He offered you power, one which your family didn't think was right for you. He stoked a passion in you for knowledge that he continued to fuel on a nightly basis. You were taught languages. You were allowed to read texts from the Senate. You were allowed to be briefed on political matters, to understand what these pieces on an invisible chessboard meant. I wonder, how long has Ophelia been a ghoul?
Over 3 years. Currently, I am 22.
Yes. And will likely stay around about that age for the foreseeable future. Visually, then, you haven't changed very much. Ghouldom means the body stops aging, or as we like to call it, the effect of kindred blood on the human body. You've become noticeably stronger, even more willful, which for anyone but your sire would be very difficult to deal with. But he handles you very easily. Your mood swings, your fiery disposition when it comes to the need to hunt. He has a handle on you, a welcomed one. It's not uncommon for you and your sire to sit at the evening gladiatorial combats at the Hippodrome. Occasionally he may have his hand around the back of your neck in a steadying fashion. I can only imagine Ophelia enjoys it.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's also the only person he's the only person that I submit any part of myself to as well.
Oh, certainly. And as far as you're concerned, every bit of you is his.
Yes.
And when your sire asks for something or requires something of you, you give it. And I think that's an interesting way for us to understand how your relationship works with him. You hunt for him, don't you?
Yes, in whatever capacity that means for him at the time.
Yes, and it could mean some ancient text or scroll fished from a library or perhaps an ecclesiastical location. Or it might be a person. Perhaps he needs to speak with someone and you are sent to retrieve them. There are others. There are other ghouls. There are other retainers. He has a very small group of political students who stay close to him that serve as his feeding herd. He is exceedingly careful. A philosophical man. A philosophical creature. He's careful. He keeps his temper in check, although you have seen him furiously angry with decisions that have been made in the Senate, or decisions which have been made by the triumvirate, this ruling group of 3 that he talks about. You would be privy to his opinions on many of the kindred, as he is not quiet, including his own clan. There is a group here in Constantinople, the Lexor Bruja. They are, in his opinion, chained to the Antonio Ventru, a group of powerful Ventru kindred here that exists within Constantinople. He sees the Lexor Bruja as lapdogs. And so he is not always within the accepted members of Clan Bruja, which serves Kalias just fine. He does not need to exist within them. His road is a different one. He goes on many walks. Sometimes it feels like the city is a cage. You've felt this too. You do an awful lot of feeling. Ever since you took your sire's blood, you've felt many things. You can feel the rush when you feed. You can feel his body against yours. A very particular way he has when you feed from him. A personal way, an intimate way. But there is always a physical nature to the monthly blood that you take from him. And so, one night, you are awaiting him outside the Senate chambers. For the player and listener's information, when I refer to the Senate, it is important to understand that we are talking about a body of kindred. We are not actually talking about human legislators. The Lexor Bruja collectively refer to themselves as the Senate. They have a leader who is called Autocrator, and they're held responsible for coordinating family activities. There are several senators below this member of Kindred Society whose numbers are constantly changing. Each senator assumes some sort of responsibility for the administration of Constantinople, including law and trade and finance, constructions, ceremonies. There are also several lesser duties that are performed by these senators. The various codices, the laws that serve as a template for Constantinople's bureaucratic and legal system number in the thousands. And they are always up for debate. If there is one thing that the Bruja, especially the Lexor Bruja, know, that is the power of deliberative. They are quite the deliberative body. Many long hours, many nights spent talking over what should be done, why it should be done, and then the counter arguments. It is not uncommon for you to stand outside the Senate doors waiting for your master, your sire, and hear his voice penetrate the thick walls, the heavy doors. It feels like a song to you, a righteous one, every single time he speaks. And so when the doors burst open and Kalias comes striding out into the hallway, the darkened hallway, you are eager to join him.
And I will step to him in stride, as I imagine he is eager to leave the chambers if it's been a particularly passionate night.
He is eager to leave. He is striding. You are able to keep up. But you wonder if he is simply allowing you to keep pace. Without any preamble or prompt, he says, "They will still do nothing." He cuts down another hallway, and you see the shadows grow. The torches here are few and far between. The din of the Senate is behind you now. And Kalias stops at a fresco and looks out a nearby window at the moon overhead. They'll all be damned.
What was the topic tonight?
The riots. He groans. This is a topic that has come up numerous occasions, but it has grown more and more on recently. The riots in the Latin Quarter have been rumbling and going on for some time. They are problematic, especially because the Latin Quarter is where many of Clan Bruja and some of the other clans live. While it does not directly affect Kalias because it is not outside his door, he is concerned. Definitely concerned.
Do they think there's no need to control or quell?
He raises his hands. For whatever reason, Epirus believes that the problem will take care of itself. He is ineffective, like a flaccid phallus.
And I will put my fist up to my mouth and smile behind it and try not to laugh, because my sire is very open about the sorts of words he uses. And even after several years, I'm still not used to it.
The Latins that make up the quarter, Epirus wants them expelled. He has always hated them. And so, when these riots spark up, he does nothing. Byzantine mortals walk past them, assault them, look at them as if they are chattel. And yet Epirus does nothing. He does not understand that it will cause long-term problems. There is a storm coming. And at some point, when enough Latins fight back, it could be any number of issues. It could be a riot, like there was 2 weeks ago, except this time it could spill over. Just years ago, there was a riot. A number of Latins were killed. It is something we will have to be mindful of, as we have allies in that quarter. I would like you to make a perception alertness roll. And your specialization in crowds does not apply, as there are no crowds.
Okay. I have 3 successes.
You catch sight of something out of the corner of your eye.
Okay.
It is a humanoid form at the end of the hallway. It's probably 40 or 50 feet from the slight bend where you and your sire are standing. You're not sure if he's seen it or not.
Yeah. Master Dukas, should we take this conversation elsewhere?
He inhales. We should pause it for now, yes.
And I'll have my voice as quiet as I can, with him still able to hear me. There's someone else here. It's too dark to see who.
I see them. You see him step forward just a little bit towards where they're at. They turn, still completely cloaked in darkness, and then slowly walk down the hall towards you. The figure arrives, and when they do, they are wearing a tunic, a very light cloak, which is dark gray. You can see underneath of it, they are wearing what looks like chainmail.
Oh.
They're not physically imposing. They look to be about in their early 20s. There's a large scar that runs the length of their face over their right eye. They have slightly tufted ears, golden hair.
Mm-hmm.
And they wear some sort of insignia or marking of either office or military rank.
I may be willful, but I also know that there are instances in which it is not my place to speak first. This is one of those.
Your sire speaks up and says, "Thomas, how are you?" The figure continues, steps a few more feet closer. and you see the moonlight illuminate most of his face. I am well. May I have a moment of your time? He looks deadly serious. Your sire sort of waves you back as if to step back, and this man, Thomas, comes forward.
And I'll do so. I'll stay in range if he needs to say something to me, especially if he needs to send me off to deliver a message or fetch someone else for him. But I will step behind his left shoulder.
The man in the tunic says, "You spoke passionately and bravely about our brothers in the Latin Quarter. Do you think there will be any change of Empress's mind?" You can see the sigh that comes out of him without hearing it. I do not know, Thomas. I know that my words were meant to drive a hammer through the marble that is in his heart. Will he listen? I do not know. Go to your brothers in the Latin Quarter, though, and have them be prepared. In case there is trouble, they will need to go underground. Thomas nods. He does something a little strange. You see a chainmail hand come forward as if to offer it in some sort of handshake. And Thomas says, "I trust, no matter how close you live to the palace, that you will always have our interest in mind." Your sire doesn't blink. He reaches forward and shakes this mailed hand. Of course, they deserve to be free, all of them. Free from the problems the fair people of Constantinople are leaping on them. Those people came here for a better life. And while I do not always appreciate being so walled in, there is work here to be done. We will plan. Now, I'm off to the Hippodrome. Thomas nods and turns around and walks away.
So this is someone that I don't know.
Not directly, no. You may have seen him before around. You're not sure who he is. You might be able to inquire with your sire as to who he is.
Shall I accompany you tonight, Master Dukas?
Indeed. I could use a bit of sport to lessen the glower in my mood. He turns and continues on the original path he was on.
Has he slowed his pace?
A little bit. Not entirely, but enough that you can see that he's calming. At least you think he is. So, from the place where you're at right now, this building, you have to go to the Hippodrome. The cool part about that is that the Hippodrome is, well, quite large. It also serves as a place for the market. It also serves as a place of gladiatorial combat, especially when nightfall happens. So it's basically the center of the city's social life. There are an awful lot of chariot races. In general speaking, the two teams are the blues and the greens.
Okay.
And you can have up to a total of 8 chariots, 4 horses each. And you'd probably know of an old tale called the Nika riots. And these happened hundreds of years ago. And those hundreds of years, when that riot went down, tens of thousands of people were killed. In fact, the second Hagia Sophia was destroyed during that riot. Because people in this time period sure like to set shit on fire.
Mm-hmm.
But you walk with him to a place of security, high in the stands, covered by different greenery and awnings. There are a group here. His, you would call senatorial followers, his politicos, turn up soon after you arrive. And they begin engaging your sire in direct questions about what happened. And, they have this question about this law and how he might argue other sides of this point. He does enjoy the back and forth with these members of his retainer. Yeah, he enjoys it. He enjoys the political conversation here. And before too long, they are beginning to engage him with decanters of wine, and he's espousing, of course, his age-old want to be careful about what we put in our stomach. Too much wine can go to the head. Many ways to deflect that sort of direct conversation. He's also a master of essentially having a full wine glass without drinking anything out of it, even though he appears to. His pantomime to being a regular old human is pretty good, honed over a long political career.
So is the majority of the politicos who have shown up unaware of his true nature?
It's hard to say. You believe that at least some of his retainers know about his true nature, but there are also mortals around. You are sure of it. Just regular old mortals who have no idea who he is other than some senatorial staff member.
Okay.
It's hard sometimes to tell who is with him and who isn't. I mean, he encourages you to drink as well.
Oh, and I will, obviously, since it is at his behest. I would do anything for my sire. I will enjoy a glass or two, but I also know that I am at my best when I am more even-tempered in not imbibing too much. Something that I'm sure that I had to learn over some time, learn where my tolerances are and where I can enjoy without over-imbibing.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. He's passed a number of notes, sheafs of paper that he reads and then eventually passes back to you. Some of these are in languages that you're well aware of, and some of them you're not. You are very much his document and letter holder. You hold on to a lot of his things, mostly because he's the sort of person who likes to have both hands available.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, the group settles in. The gladiatorial combats begin. This is well into the evening. The crowd becomes very much hyper-focused on the different battles that are being fought. Many of his politicos either head down closer, because he's the sort of fellow who chooses to sit fairly high up. You see him just before some of the other politicos go down closer to the fighting. You see a dark-skinned woman have a conversation with him. You've seen her before. She's one of his herd. They have a very engaging conversation. And after a few moments, he says something to her. And she turns around, faces the gladiatorial seats, and then sits in front of him. And then when she sits in front of him, she leans forward, just ever so slightly, not terribly far. And he leans over and bites her. And you can feel so many different emotions.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think Ophelia is feeling?
Jealousy. Hands down. I'm well aware of the fact that he feeds from others that he has a herd, but I will always wish to be the preferred person that sates the hungers that he has, no matter what kind that is. So there will be jealousy, and that is something that will never fade. My devotion to my sire is absolute. And there will also definitely be rage coursing through my veins. I never get jealous of the men, but the hope is always that I'm the preferred person for him to feed from and get attention to outside of his normal interests. It's not, they're feelings that I have a lid on because I have to. It would not do well for me to embarrass him more than I might from time to time, simply from being willful, and also because I'm sure that there has been discussions about it, because I'm sure that, especially at the beginning of my service to him, I had more emotional outbursts that could have caused me to fall from favor if I had not gotten a handle on them.
It stews inside of you. The moment is protracted. It grows. Mercifully, it ends. And you watch this woman who's likely in the throes of ecstasy just lean back against this series of stairs and seats which make up the hippodrome. And she stares off, having been supped from. And after a moment, your master leans back and relaxes.
I don't say anything in regards to it. He's aware of his surroundings. He would not have fed if it were not safe for him to do so. And I do not voice my displeasure.
With the cover of night this far up, the very limited fires that are kept at this level, it would be unlikely for anyone to have seen him. This isn't the first time you've been to the Hippodrome with him. This is a rather common occurrence. There are many of the types of creature that your master is that dot the landscape here. The gladiatorial fights are done in their honor. It is what they enjoy watching. The bloodshed. The political back and forth between clans who would prefer to perhaps fight, but do so through intermediaries. Because it is safer. Because no one wants war. He turns his head, and you see that sort of permanent beard that he wears. Of course, his visage is stuck like that. At least you've never seen it change in the 3 years of service to him. And he picks up the wine glass that the politicos gave him and pours it out. And with his fingers on that wine glass, he beckons you closer.
And I'll stand and cross to him. I'm sure I wasn't terribly far, but when his politicos and his retinue arrive, I also know that I am not exclusively in his sight, so it's rare that I keep myself directly at his side unless stated to otherwise. I understand some politics due, I'm sure, to coaching and just seeing it in my years of service. So my house is, I'm not, a member of a super high integrated family. So I don't have the pleasure or ability to really put up too much of a fight in public spaces.
Well, and even private spaces when it comes to your sire.
Yeah. But I will sit next to him.
You sit next to him?
Mm-hmm.
He gestures to the space in front of him.
Oh. Then I will sit in front of him.
Kneel.
There are no questions. I kneel in front of him.
He, with his left hand, reaches out and takes your right arm and sort of smooths his hand down from your bicep to your forearm. Places his thumb right at your wrist. And you can feel the shared pulse between your two forms. With him having just fed, his presence is somehow just amplified. He smells like blood. He has all of these natural pheromones or odors that come out of him that are enticing. You can feel when he wants something more. Service means many things, he says to you.
Yes, Master Dukas. In my eyes, I'm not looking at him. Not directly in the face. I'm probably staring at his chest.
Mm-hmm.
Or closer to his abdomen a little bit. My gaze is downcast, but I'm not in more of a full bow kind of position because I know that that's not the kind of position that he wants me in. It's something that he has corrected. He's not looking for, at least in me, he's not looking for a servant who bows and scrapes in a physical way like that. He's looking for someone who's devoted and offers it freely and willingly. At least that's how it's appeared during my time of service for him.
Well, it's clear that your sire is not interested in having some sort of automaton.
No.
But he is interested in retaining the respect and the duty that any sort of ghoul would give their master.
Yes.
He takes that wrist in hand and turns it over. And he says, there is something which I am just becoming aware of. There is an opportunity for us to awaken some eyes in this city to the problems that plague it. But uniquely, it is not something which I can directly deal with. And so I require a tool, an object which can carry my purpose forward. You will be that object.
And I can feel myself swell with pride and anticipation. Then what would you have me do first, Master Dukas?
First, I would have you watch and listen as political change begins. There will be many voices, many raised voices. Even now, the voices in the Latin Quarter are going to reach a crescendo. The natives here will have some reaction. In the fallout, we will be prepared to collect something which is ours, something which has always been ours, but has been taken from us. You can see him sort of like baring his teeth. I've told you stories of the cities of old. I've regaled you countless times with Carthage and the injustice that was done by Rome. There are codices, there are scrolls and books which were never recovered. They could hold secrets in them far grander than we know. And just this evening I have received a missive in an ancient tongue which confirms that one may be within our reach, but it will take an exceptional person to retrieve it, a mortal. And so, it will be important that you go with every bit of what makes your new life important. And that's me. You see him sort of swell a little bit, like physically. He gets larger. You are aware that here at the Hippodrome there are chariot races. See a flash of something close to a grin, and that these chariots are pulled by glorious horses. Tell me, do you ride?
When beckoned, yes.
His hand goes from your wrist and arrives on your collarbone.
My head naturally tilts so that my neck is exposed.
Then perhaps you have been beckoned. With a single move, he turns you around. And there, in the upper portion of the Hippodrome, you receive your monthly blood point, which keeps you a ghoul. You do so by taking his ferocity, his aggression into your form. It is one of the things that has commonly marked your feeding times with your sire. The very palpable connection, the physical connection between the two of you. You don't really remember it all. That's mostly because he is exceedingly rough with you.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when you zone out from the pain and probably the pleasure, but he gets what he needs from you. And so, lying there afterwards, having collapsed onto the seats in the Hippodrome, you can hear the sounds of combat in the distance, steel against steel, the cheering of the crowd, the screaming, the yelling, the whole cacophony, which is humanity. And somehow, you are apart from it, as you hold a gift that few do.
Did I stay more or less clothed?
Yeah, I don't think he would have stripped you of clothes. I think he would have likely just
Bunched it up enough to use.
to use you, yes. Not unpleasantly,
No.
but you were used, and it felt amazing.
And it does every time.
At some point later on in the evening, when you recover enough, as you probably took a shitload of bashing, he shares with you that word will come when the time is right, and he will send you to this place where you can retrieve something dear to the clan. And provided you can improve your worth, he will seek the right to make you immortal.
And every part of me tingles with anticipation at the thought and the notion, less about living forever. Because that's not the end goal, at least as far as for myself. I live to serve my sire and my master. The honor of being able to serve him in an immortal way is a draw that runs deep in my bones.
And we're going to see just how devoted you are when you and our other two ghouls join the stage on the Old Ways Twitch channel on December 26th when we kick off this amazing new story. So I want to thank Allie for playing Ophelia, and I look forward to seeing all of you live when we get a chance to play a little bit more vampire. So thank you and good night.